so you can hit go live. Hey, how you doing? We're live.
What's up to all our sidekicks and henchmen out there in the Geek Nation? You're listening to / watching the Spoiler Alert podcast, the weekly comic book discussion show. We are live streaming, so feel free to chat with us. We are on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. So if you have any comments, please toss them in the box, and we will. You can be part of the conversation. The conversation. What is it? You ask. I assume because there's no comment. I'm assuming you're asking in your head. We're going to be talking about Justice League of America, The Nail by, what's his nuts? Alan Davis, inks by Mark Farmer. It was written and drawn by Alan Davis. I'm Johnny Destructo. With me this week is...
Yo, what's up? Holla at your boy. This is Len, a.k.a. the Bat Tribble.
As well as...
Hey, it's Brian Lee. Me.
And then this guy.
Hi, my name is Noel. I'm just pleased to be here today.
Someone's got to be. So we got letters.
We got letters. We got lots and lots.
We've got lots and lots of letters.
This one it's one
Letters.
letter, honestly. May is a bitch from Carl Carls. I'm just gonna read it. Hey, JD, Len, Noel, and Brian, and Brandon too. Can't forget him. I am just taking a quick minute to write a message to you all to let you know how much I appreciate your shows, Gutter Talk and Spoiler Alert. As you can tell by my subject line, this has been a challenging month for me. My Aunt Phyllis passed away 10 days ago, and if that wasn't bad enough, my mom passed away late Sunday evening. That's right. Mother's Day is tainted for me now. Thank goodness it occurs a day earlier here in Australia. I won't go into details, but suffice it to say, I am gutted. During the pandemic, Australia's borders are closed, meaning that I am unable to return home from Tasmania to be with my family. I know, boo-hoo. I am not writing this message to you all for sympathy. I just wanted to let you know that your shows have been a bright spot for me during this time and have really made me laugh out loud and feel as good as I possibly can right now. And I wanted to let you know how much I appreciate them. First of all, what the oh, I know. Boo-hoo. My aunt and mom are dead. Woe is me. Like, nah, dude, that's cool. Like, you can boo-hoo. That's a totally legit reason to boo and who. That's like downplaying. That sounds awful. No, that's fucking terrible. We're so sorry to hear that. As a side note, I also have to say that Noel, I always have to figure out where to point. Noel, who I reached out to after listening to the Hawkeye / Bitch Planet show, and even though he does not know me, was able to take time out of his day to offer much needed support. Your kindness, like the show itself, was greatly appreciated. Please continue to create the greatest, funniest, and informative shows that you can. And, of course, please keep up the much appreciated good work. Kindest regards, Carl Carls, a.k.a. the self-appointed 2000 AD Tribble.
Was there a footnote on there saying to review Brown Fury? Was it?
No, it's not on there, but it's here. I have it. Listen, Carl Carls, it's here. I just need to get it to the other people in the show so we could all talk about it, or maybe I'll just do a
put it in my box.
Around.
Didn't we
I can't put it in your box because it's physical.
I mean, put it in my box.
Oh, your vagina.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Carl's a good dude. Yeah, he reached out to me just to chit chat, and it's like, yeah, absolutely. How are you? How are things? And I think longtime listeners know that he lives in Tasmania. So all the shit that's been happening with Australia this year, in addition to the pandemic, like Carl was there for all of it. Like, getting your comics when the world is on fire, literally on fire. So he's been awesome. Thank you for
for sure. And that's awful that he can't even visit home to be with his family during this time.
My deepest sympathies for all of this. It's awful, and I and all of us, I'm sure, are really glad that we can help brighten your day or your time. But It's terrible, and I'm very sorry.
When he mentioned that, my first question was there family nearby? So to make sure that she just wasn't alone, and he assured that there was, and they're taking good care.
Well, that's good. I'm glad, Carl, that you've got family nearby to help you get through these troubled times. So now, can we, on your behalf, get to some comic book reading and get to some good times right here on this Sunday morning, please? What's up, Carl? One love, baby.
No, I don't know. Let's talk about some more sad stuff.
Let's sit in this. Hey, how you guys feel about the way that the state's response to the pandemic has been?
So we're here to talk about Justice League of America: The Nail by Alan Davis. This is, I would say, Alan Davis's love letter to the Silver Age.
Is that what it is? A love letter?
That was his attempt.
Okay.
Whether or not it succeeded, I guess we'll discuss.
I actually read the forward, which I never do. And he says, "Did you?" Yeah. And I was like,
me too. So are we going to talk about The Nail and Another Nail, or just...
I think we all read it,
Nail?
but can I make a request that we talk about them separately and not together?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
You can make the request.
Denied.
I mean, you said I here declare that we discuss them separately.
Let's do that. Which one do you want to start with, Noel? The first one or the second one, since you're making demands?
I think we should start with the credits page of the sequel.
So I don't know. I guess Len has thoughts about it, but this is my all-time favorite Elseworlds story.
Really?
Yeah, I know a lot of people like Red Sun, which is great, and Blood Rain. Was it Blood Rain, Red Rain, Dark Rain, something?
Red
Batman one with the teeth,
where it becomes a vampire.
JD, I'm going to let you speak, and then I'm going to blow.
But not yet.
No, I'm going to let you speak.
All right, Kanye.
But after you finish, I'm going to turn your statement into a lie.
Which one?
Oh, that it's the best.
That is his favorite. That is his favorite Elseworld.
Well, can
oh shit! All right.
Can we set up a primer for what Elseworlds are and what they aren't anymore?
Oh.
So, like, yeah. Well, no, I don't necessarily want to do it. Elseworld stories are.
Well, let JD because he was talking. So go ahead.
Oh, I'm done.
I think we need to push this off on Brian now. Then.
I mean, I think so I was going to say, well, if it has that Elseworlds logo, right, and the thing at the top, but that's not on this. So, it is. Okay. It's not on the deluxe one. So it is on that. And they would used to say, like, they had their little spiel, can't, couldn't, or shouldn't exist about these stories. I mean, they're all, I see what you're saying, like, should other alternate reality stories be counted or not? What do you think?
Okay, what I was saying was, what is an Elseworld story? If somebody wants to say what that is.
Oh, sorry. Well, it's an alternate reality.
Len, why don't you tell the people?
It's an alternate reality story.
Well, I will.
Continuity. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
We are so prepared.
I thought we had to define it to prove whether or not this was JD's favorite Elseworld story.
No. Just what's an Elseworld story? Give examples of some other ones. So you guys had mentioned Red Rain, Superman Red Sun. Is Kingdom Come an Elseworld? I think it is, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
When it was originally published, it had the logo. Now the logo doesn't exist anymore.
Right. So things that have been reproduced and put back out, reprinted, they're reprinted, not, without the Elseworlds logo, including what I would say is JD's actual favorite Elseworld.
I'm so curious. What is it?
Hold
on. I'm gonna let you speak, Len.
I'm gonna let you finish.
I'm genuinely curious because more often than not, Len knows my taste better than I do. So go ahead. What is it?
I think JD's actual favorite Elseworld of all time is Darwin Cook's The New Frontier.
Is that Elseworlds?
Oh shit!
Yeah, it
is that an Elseworlds?
That is decidedly Elseworlds.
I thought it was just like you know how they reimagine and do their, you know, like nothing
That's
is
what
that different in Elseworld. In
what Elseworlds is. It's else.
Yeah, but the circumstances
Elseworlds.
aren't. You know what I mean? They mirror the development of the Golden and Silver Age.
No,
and,
they don't.
Well, okay. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
In my mind, Elseworlds is usually always let's change one thing about a character and see the ripple effect for that, or let's change one event and see the ripple event for that. New Frontier is a complete rehash of. It's just juxtaposing. You know, it's a rehash of the birth of superheroes. It's juxtaposing, not unlike Watchmen is. So as Watchmen an Elseworlds, it's not like I don't know. I like to me.
I consider
New Frontier.
I consider an Elseworld to be like a what if.
Yeah,
and like Noel said, like here we're gonna change this element.
Yeah.
Now, see, but I would still say that New Frontier counts, and I don't know how we landed on this. Oh, it was my fault. I would say that New Frontier still counts because it is to a degree a what if, because it posits that the superhero age started in a totally different time than actual comic book continuity at that time was saying that it started. The New Frontier is set decidedly like in the time of the 50s and the 60s, and by then DC had already moved far afield from that.
It does start in what was it, World War II?
Right.
The original Suicide Squad.
Would you consider? Well, it has to boil down to whether or not we consider it, because it's literally not an Elseworlds because they don't do those anymore. But Batman Earth 1, Wonder Woman Earth 1, etc.
That's like an Elseworld line almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was sort of an experimental. Like I'd put it in. So
it's still happening.
DC did imaginary stories, right? And Elseworlds were just like the newer name for imaginary stories. With the Earth 1 line, it almost seems like, no, we're not paying attention at all to the comics. This is a completely different thing. So it's almost like too different to be an Elseworlds.
Right. I'll tell you,
it's their ultimate line, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Exactly. That's a good.
If New Frontier is an Elseworlds, then yeah, that's probably my favorite.
It's not my favorite Elseworlds. It's one of my favorite pieces of fiction. Just across the board. It's
well, this is up there, is what I'm saying. This is one of my favorites. It was ever since it first came out. I read it in issues. They came out in 3 oversized issues back in the day, back in 1998, I believe. Yeah. And I've never been a big fan of the Silver Age, but I have since discovered I don't know if it's not my only niche. I have many niches. But I would say one of my favorite things, though, is not the Silver Age, but when there is a contemporary take on the Silver Age.
Okay.
Like Robin Year One or Batgirl Year One, New Frontier, modern retellings or reimaginings of things in the Silver Age. For some reason, the Silver Age itself holds no home for me. I don't go in there and spend a lot of time. But anytime they do something that refers back to it now, I like it. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, actually, I agree with that. And for me, it's basically just how it's written. So the Silver Age, even though like the plots and the stories are fun and recognizable and enjoyable, the way that it's written is just so. I struggle to read it. I don't enjoy that at all. It's a chore. But those concepts with a more modern touch, I love. Absolutely love.
Yeah.
I'll tell
now,
you,
Brian.
Yes.
Go on.
Yes, I'll tell you, I love the Silver Age, and I totally agree with you guys. Like, the old stories, I love to have them or look at them or even just the covers or think about them. But the Silver Age retellings in the modern era they're like a totally different thing and probably more, more conducive to like me really enjoying the story or all of that. And it's interesting too that with especially the Flash, you get this. There were no Barry Allen stories in the modern age, until recently. So he only ever appeared in these like backstory kind of retellings that weren't the stories that he was actually in. It's kind of the Silver Age from the modern vantage point kind of deal. That splash page is awesome. The one that you just held up.
There's a lot of great splash pages. In this book,
Each character gets their own, like each hero gets their own one, I noticed as it was going on. And each one is like, whoa, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Amazing Spider-Man annual #1 with the first appearance of the Sinister Six, where Steve Ditko gave Spider-Man a whole splash page every time he encountered one of the Sinister Six. Awesome. They made a series of T-shirts out of them. I regret not buying all of them. Len, what do you think about the Silver Age?
Like no, it does not read well. The concepts are cool. Some of the, let's face it, the Silver Age, those concepts. God, I'm looking at Brian, looking at what JD's doing. People are right. People who have written in like that. This show is very much like watching the opening credits to the Brady Bunch. It's very true because it just everybody looking around and look at Noel, and then Noel did the little fun like depth of perspective thing when he was petting his cat in the background.
While you guys were talking, Cooper just like walked over here, and I was just like, "Hey, buddy." Hey, buddy.
It was so cute. It was dope. But no, the Silver Age. I mean, the Silver Age is cool. What really makes it stand out as very hard to read is that when you remember in 1961, 62, 63, 64, the same time you're reading, these overwritten, very corny Superman and admittedly Batman stories, the Justice League are really just a bunch of people running around in their comic book, different costumes, but they might as well have been the same guy speaking the same language, while Wonder Woman was back, playing secretary at the cave. At the same time those things are happening, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko are putting out Spider-Man. They're putting out the Fantastic Four. They're putting out they're reimagining Captain America and creating the Avengers and the Hulk. It's literally at the same time. So while you have love for the Silver Age, like Brian says, when you're looking at the covers and some of the art looks kind of quaint, the second you open the book, you're just like, okay, next, bye. But that's what made Grant Morrison's run on Batman all that more delicious, when he just brings all that Silver Age stuff with the 21st century perspective. It somehow makes it all kind of make some kind of sense in a way.
Did it though? Did it make sense?
No, I said in a way.
Anyway, Jeff Johns.
In a nonsensical way.
It made sense in a dreamlike state kind of way where
that's what
everything
Grant Morrison does.
Yeah.
Jeff Johns, though, like same point, but does it in a more sort of concrete.
Jeff Johns will cherry pick little things, whereas Grant Morrison will be like, "Oh no, throw it all in, just toss it all in. We're gonna make an omelet with the entirety of the fridge."
So, Len, to go back to earlier. Oh wait, never mind. I think we already touched on it. I was misreading what you were saying earlier. Earlier, you said something when I said Elseworlds. Did you? All right, show of hands. Who liked the book? Huh?
All right.
Okay, cool. Len, that's what I thought. Len, tell us more. Why did you not? Why do you give us a más o menos?
Oh, I really was just waving. No, I like it. I've always liked the book. I mean, the one thing about the book though that struck me, even when the first time that I read it, is that, wow, this is dark. It's real dark. And being a fan of Alan Davis, his writing and his artwork more so, it was really cool because it definitely has a superheroic tone, because he just draws good superheroes, very strong characters, but it is dark. He is murdering at will on almost every single page. You know, he's just and then he does this thing, and he's always done it, but in this book it just really creeps me out because it's very intermittently he gives Batman eyeballs and is like, yo, man,
That was
they just they're creepy when they happen, man. They are definitely creepy as hell. But you can't knock the artwork. You can't knock him throwing himself into every freaking page. He draws he goes from a totally terrifying Batman to all of the heroes feel like they kind of have like their own physicality. I noticed that the Flash has a different physicality than Green
I
Lantern.
love the Flash in this.
Yeah. I love the Atom. I love everything. I love his Joker. His Joker is not the most menacing looking Joker, but it's a damn good Joker. And of course, Alan Davis. I don't think he has drawn a woman that does not look, fantastic. So it's a gorgeous comic book. It's just real dark, but it's cool.
I guess that's the entire point, right? So anybody who doesn't know, we should preface this. We should tell the people. So the Nail basically posits that the day that Superman arrives on Earth, that Kal-El crashes to Smallville, and is found by Jonathan and Martha Kent. God damn it, I can't say the name Martha without thinking of that movie. Anyway,
Martha.
Why'd you say that name? And so basically they get a nail in their tire and they decide to stay home and have sex instead of going and accidentally finding the alien boy. So that is exactly what they do.
Yeah,
that is exactly
to stay home.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I wonder if they had a
Look
kid.
at that. Martha is thirsty. Look at it.
Yeah.
I'm in the
She
mood
goes,
to stay home.
Don't bother, Jonathan. I'm in the mood to stay home. Oh, Martha Kent, you're shameless.
Yeah.
So because of the nail in their tire, the nail that holds together the DC universe is missing. So there's still a Justice Society of America. There's still a Justice League of America, but there is no Superman.
Right.
And it even starts off with this little bit I like from. What is this? A verse by George Herbert?
It's the way that they phrase it. It's like it's not that, but it's been popularly. Like I get the feeling he wrote something different, and then this is what's entered the public because it says colloquial
adaptation
verse by George Herbert, which I kind of wonder what the original. It must just not sound as flowy, or it like addresses a character or something.
For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the knight was lost. For want of a knight, the battle was lost. So it was, a kingdom was lost, all for the want of a nail. Which I think is a great way to start the book.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, to go back to what you were saying, Len, it is very dark because a world without Superman is a dark world, right? That's the whole point.
I wondered when I read it years ago, and it occurred to me again. It's kind of like the Marvel universe, right? It's this is the superhero universe without a unifying, like positive, universally loved messianic figure that is Superman. You know what I mean? And then it starts to be like, oh, people don't trust them, and well, there was a plot, but you know what I mean? That was a feeling that I had while reading it.
Yeah. And one of the first things we see is that because and I was explaining this to Sushan yesterday before I had finished reading it. I read it originally when it came out, and it had been so long that I kind of forgot major plot points. So a lot of this was new again to me. And the first thing you see is that Lex Luthor is being reelected again as the mayor of Metropolis, and it's basically a utopia. So I kind of right off the bat, I was like, oh, cool. Because Superman's not here, he is actually able to focus his genius in actually making Metropolis a better place instead of constantly saying, I could fix Metropolis if it wasn't for that cursed alien. And he actually does it.
Always misunderstood. Just always woefully misunderstood.
And I was a little disappointed to find out that later on it's all part of a bigger plot. But I kind of liked that version of Lex. Of like, he actually does care. He actually does care about the. Go on.
No, I said no, go on, and that's when you stopped the second time to go on. No, go on.
I lost it. Go ahead.
I don't know where we are right now.
Oh, God damn it.
I was just okay. All I was gonna say is, am I the only person that has never read this? That's all.
Oh.
Like you had a breath, and I was like, oh wait, am I the only person that never read this before today?
Yes.
And you stopped.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all.
Okay, yeah, we all read it. Did you guys read it? The two of you who also read it, did you read it when it came out or just visited later?
Oh no,
But
I read it
before
when
now.
it came out.
I think I
read
read
it
it when it came out. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Len, just to backtrack a little bit for a little bit of history, what do you know about Alan Davis?
Well, Alan Davis is famously an artist, first and foremost, who I believe is British. He started
Yes.
over doing artwork on I think he followed up. He did some work on Judge Dredd. He definitely did a lot of book art over there. I think he did some work on Miracle Man back in the days of Neil Gaiman and Alan Moore. I believe so. Don't quote me on that. But he was big over in England before coming over to the States, where he first, I think, the one book that made his big splash was on Batman. He was on Batman with I can't remember who the writer was, but he was known for putting.
He said he did Miracle Man, right? You heard it from Len. Exactly.
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
He did Batman. He would then go on to work on with Marvel doing Excalibur. I know that was he was like big on them for a minute, as well as doing other things on an X-Men world. I think at one time he's done pretty much everything. He's did short runs on Justice League. He did runs on the Avengers. He did runs on the Fantastic Four. He became very much for a long time. He, I think, may be the late part of the 20th century, early 20th century, the artist. You know what I mean? Everybody that's like marvels at his technique.
You're
as far as
correct. You're correct, Len. Judge Dredd, 2000 AD, Miracle Man, Vampirella, and then literally every single property for DC and Marvel.
Yep. Yeah, for real. He was that dude. And
I'd like to see his Judge Dredd and his Vampirella. I'd like to see both of those. I have to check those out.
He was. I will say one thing real quick. I'm sorry, B. He was another one of those artists who started off, and you can still see some pieces of it in his artwork right now, that he started off a little bit like in that Neil Adams world before he started to develop his own kind of technique. And now you'll see that there are artists, some of the most acclaimed artists, who have little touches of Alan Davis in their art style. Most famously to me, Brian Hitch, who very much started off as Alan Davis kind of clone before developing his own style and look and technique. I'm telling you, he's everybody's artist.
It's almost, you mentioned Hitch. It's almost like Hitch has gone from Davis, and then now he's employing a little bit of Neil Adams with his like rubbery physiques.
Yep.
But he just completely went full circle on that, because some of his more recent stuff, like in Batman's Grave, it's got a rubbery feel to it, almost just like Neil Adams says, as opposed to the very like grounded and heavy weight of of Alan Davis. That's kind of funny.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to compare, Neil Adams and a little bit of Jim Aparo and Alan Davis. They're all of the same mold, I think. Yep. But for me, as much as I love Neil Adams, I really do. I think Alan Davis is just ekes out just over top of him.
I've never read anything by Alan Davis though, at all.
Really?
Yeah, as a writer, I don't remember anything I've read of his. And also too, like my introduction to Alan Davis was probably 30 years after his heyday, when I started reading comics again in the early 2000s, and he was doing like fill-in issues and stuff for Marvel of the books that I was reading. And then it would be like, I've gotten, like the writer would exclaim, like, I've got legendary Alan Davis. I'm like, oh, cool. I'll go look him up. Like it wasn't anything that was
Oh
like
wow.
I don't have like fresh memories of Alan Davis and discovering him for the first time. It was like he did a couple issues of New Avengers. Like, oh shit.
Yeah, the Brian Michael Bendis stuff.
Yeah, like this does look like it clearly looks of a time. Everyone got the same comb over haircut. Just in the same way that I remember John Romita, no matter what, every woman has a 1975 blowout, no matter what. Just like stuff like that, like you just notice it, but it was his facial features that were just so great. So then I'd go back and look up stuff. But yeah, no, I don't have a relationship with Alan Davis, especially as a writer. I had no idea what I was getting into.
You like if you like his writing on these books, he would not long after this book and then the sequel follow this up, because like you said, he does everybody at Marvel. He did a series of books of Marvel The End, where he wrote his idea of what the last story of these characters will be. And I'm pretty sure, I know he did a Fantastic Four The End, and I think he did an Avengers The End as well. And they were both of the same kind of like packaging as The Nail. And it was him writing and art.
He's had to get his darkness out.
Yes.
Some listeners are chiming in. Max Mancini says, "Damn, Len just pulled a Kanye on JD." Hal 2814 says, "Morning guys, it's your boy Charles in Chattanooga. I read The Nail and liked it, but didn't know there was a second one. So, look, you learn shit from watching us, y'all." And then Melly G says, "Hey gents, is that Melissa Gums?"
That is Melissa Gums.
Yeah. What's up? So Len, I remember what I wanted to ask you earlier. It wasn't that it was my favorite Elseworlds. It was that it was his love letter to the Silver Age, and then you were sort of poo-pooing that. Did you follow up with that? Is that why you said that? Because you thought it was too dark to be Silver Age?
Oh yeah, just because it was so dark. It was almost like he was just blowing the Silver Age the fuck up in this book. So that's why I was like, is the love letter? Is it really a love letter, or is it
a Dear John letter?
Exactly.
Not you, it's me letter.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the book. What did you guys think, Brian? I assume you enjoyed it the first time you read it.
I did enjoy it.
And how did you feel returning to it? Did you enjoy it as much or less?
I don't remember. I'd forgotten like major elements of it, so I really just remembered having enjoyed it. So I would say about the same amount. I felt it more resonant with the political climate of today, and that made it a little more uncomfortable to read than it would have otherwise. With Luther being an elected politician and having, I mean, that actually happened in DC Comics later, but it's a negative state, and that hit me more now.
And also how there's an incredible amount of xenophobia and fear of aliens.
Yes, there is that as well, and a lot of like government trampling on liberties and that sort of thing, which was a common element of stories back at that time, and the good guys won, which is always nice to see.
There's also like a layer of entropy over all of this. Like they're heroes and they want to do well or save people and be a force for good, but there's a level of entropy for all of them where it's just like, yeah, but what's most important is the seas. But like they're all very just a little bit detached. There's no spirit so much as like we're just co-workers. All right, like we don't have to like each other.
Like they don't even all know each other's identities. Which
I really liked.
What's that?
I really liked it. Like I liked that.
Barry and the Atom. Speaking of friends, that was an interesting pair. Usually Barry and Hal Jordan are best friends. You get the in this one, the world turned out a little different, and they seem to like each other well enough, but they don't really hang out. But the scientist Atom hanging out with the scientist Flash, they make a real good team. It's cool.
Yeah,
the original Science Bros.
Yeah. How'd you guys think that one thing where the Atom is describing how his powers work? Like step by step, what he'll do to break into the Thinker's lab. Yeah.
I hated it.
You didn't like it?
Ah,
I hated it. That was actually my biggest complaint of this whole book. That is the only time that it feels like I'm reading something Silver Age. Everyone explains absolutely everything that they're thinking, feeling, and hurting, whether there's another person in the room or not. And I'm like, God damn it, just make these text boxes. Like, just make them like text boxes or thoughts. Why the fuck is this person speaking so eloquently about everything they're doing to avoid detection?
Oh, I do.
so
As I move
actually,
around my apartment, I describe in detail, what I'm doing.
in the back, Alan Davis in the afterword says, it also seemed appropriate because The Nail is an attempt to recapture the sense of fun in comics I read as a kid and, more important, the accessibility. There are no narrative captions, no thought balloons, just a simple, sharp, fast-paced story that can be read by anyone of any age, including those who haven't developed the skill to simultaneously read art and 2 or 3 textual threads. Even if by simplifying the text, I risk alienating a few readers who see the literary conventions as essential sophistication. So he even says he's not doing the thing that I think Noel said that he's doing, right? So this is pared down. So it's I think I noticed it as well, and I thought, oh, this is very Silver Agey, but it's not as egregious as the Silver Age actually was.
Very
so
true.
It's got just enough for me to be like, here's a little flavor of the Silver Age without, sort of bombarding you with it. And I was like, thanks, Alan Davis. That was the perfect amount. Nom, 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 nom.
After you reading that, I do appreciate what he tried to do, but if it's too like make it uncumbersome, really, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
Yeah.
Especially in the sequence that you're talking about.
Like if it was in text boxes or spoken, like I just thought it was cool that the Atom is like, here's how I will use my powers step by step to do this thing.
Yeah, to be fair too, like in the past, I have, and we have all complained about other writers who, like modern writers who do this in text boxes a lot, and no one speaks to anybody. Tom King, I'm talking about you. Like whole sequences will literally just be like a poem or an allegory or a story or just prose novel in the panel, in the side of the panels, and no characters are interacting with each other. So like that is obviously way on the other end of the spectrum, and also just as egregious. I don't know. Like if it was to make it more accessible, then yeah, it didn't work for me. But it didn't hurt the whole thing. I actually really liked all of this.
I think with a book like this, where he's trying to connect with other readers and be accessible, I think it's important for someone who doesn't know how the Atom's abilities work to sort of demonstrate. Like a lot of them, you get it. You're like, oh, okay, Flash runs quick, got it. But like with somebody like the Atom, I like the ins and outs of like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to alter my density this much so that I drop like a stone, but then I'm going to get a little bigger so that I can, it's just, I like that for him specifically. I don't think it needs to be done for everybody. And I found it engaging to read. That particular bit. I think if he had done it across the board, it would have been frustrating for me.
I don't understand what he means by in the afterword or forward that you mentioned. I don't understand what he means by it being more or less difficult to read if these were in text boxes versus dialogue boxes, because they're still happening. So it's like he broke his own rule by squeezing something in natural into dialogue when it could have I just don't understand what makes it more or less accessible to not have a description box or a mental dialogue that doesn't happen in audibly. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe for the rest of the book, but in this sequence explicitly, it's like he needed to get it done. So break your rule if it makes it better.
Well, if you have each, like if you want to have dialogue or thought balloons, or that maybe figure that tracing it to, well, this only works for text.
He's alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're not having to, your brain is not having to cognitively decide as to what is internal and what is external, or what is like being said outside of the panel or inside the panel, because the character is literally alone for the whole 4-page sequence.
Well, maybe
but then you're wondering if it's some omniscient narrator who's doing it. Is it him talking? Is it a voiceover that he's talking? Like, is it one of those scenes where someone is relaying what they did in the future that they had done in the past?
It's basic language of comic book 70 pages into the story. So I don't see it as being a hurdle.
Okay.
Personally.
Well,
I mean,
I will agree that regardless of the structure or how the format of that he does it, that Alan Davis, like a lot of writers or artists of his time, especially the ones who are maybe not writers first, can be a little verbose in their writing, and thus, um, you have these ideas.
nope.
You've also mapped out how it fits story wise and what your panel layout is going to be, and now you've got to tell your story and like, oh my god, I've got to fit in a whole bunch of words here because there's so much that I want to fit in to tell this story, and I haven't given myself a whole lot of space in amongst my pretty pictures. And so I will say that there were times when I read this when it originally came out, and even now, and I certainly feel it even more so on the sequel, where the writing is like, wow, he had to fit in a lot of here. There's a lot of plot.
Yeah, it's and this sequence is almost like right in the middle of the first book. So it's almost like the writing style of the beginning of the book is, like he mentions, it's a little bit more accessible. It's a very straightforward, fast-paced story, and then as it amps up, or even as the plot thickens, it kind of peaks here for like a major point in the mystery. So it's like it's getting harder and harder to keep that kind of edict of accessibility. So right here, it kind of is pressed to like it's stretched really thin, but then it ramps back down when he's able to get past that point. So it's almost like this sequence that you mentioned. I loved the science of it and like his thought process, but just the way that it was in boxes was very awkward. But it doesn't last long because it just ramps right back down the hill for the rest of the story. It's like this was the sequence where it just felt weird, but then everything was fine afterwards, so it's okay.
Okay.
Sweet.
So, Len, same question to you that I posed to Brian. How did you feel revisiting this story?
I felt kind of like the same type of thing. Like Brian, I felt like ooh, this is like this is little little too on the nose with what's been going on the last few years. Some of the things. The one thing I did think reading this was how cool, especially because Superman is not here. It would have been like how cool this would have been if this had been adapted into the JLA movie, like after Superman dies. Especially since if you want to, after Superman dies, then posit that Batman is an older, wiser Batman, as he's Ben Affleck is supposed to be. That if you did this as that story, so then you're saying that Superman's been dead maybe you just say he's been dead for a while, and this is what has happened to the world in his wake. Yes, there have been heroes inspired from him, but also the Earth doesn't know how to take them. Batman is now older, so that's the one thing I read about it.
Those movies definitely needed to be darker.
well, I hear you. There's that too, but it would have been a better story.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. It would make sense. It would make sense as if Superman, like in the Snyderverse, it would be the same as it is here, because Superman never really existed in the Snyderverse. There was no figure of hope,
right?
Like Superman is supposed to be. There was just another dark dude with red eyes. So
right, but I fell in love with it all over again. The artwork just sends me. It's a picture book for me.
Yeah.
Now I will say, when I first read it, spoiler alert for 30, 40-year-old comic book or something like that. When I first read it, it was so dark, and then I was hoping that once the Kal-El figure is revealed at the end, that okay, there's going to be some sunshine here. But no, there's still one more very intense, dark moment that happens right there at the end when why they gotta kill his parents?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, they got
so that
Owen
he
and
can have
Brood.
Ma and Pa Kent.
Yeah.
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 I'm like, like, I thought we were done. I thought we were heading towards the sun. It's like, God, it's like watching an episode of Oz. It's like then nobody goes untouched in this damn thing. So, so reliving that again, honestly, I was like dreading. That's the one thing I was dreading about reading this. I don't want to see that again, and I gotta see it again. Ugh.
It's so funny. It didn't really occur to me how dark it was until you've been talking about it now. I guess it is pretty dark.
Everybody
Oh, yeah.
does. But you know what? Another thing that I did read, did hit on me, is that for all the stories that are happening in here, again, and this, I guess it's a little bit of a shame, and it's the mindset that you're put in the 21st century. I don't think that his women are depicted very well story wise. I don't think they're given much to do. Like, I don't mind the idea of Catwoman being there for Batman, but what I also kind of like probably championed in 1998 and now kind of like rubs me a little bit the wrong way is that she loses a little bit of her identity and then, becomes Batwoman in this thing, like and she is, once she's introduced, she pretty much is just servicing the Batman plot in the story as opposed to trying to develop something of her own, which is fine. She's not in the Justice League, but they're not really developing anything with Wonder Woman or Hawkwoman either.
Yeah,
so
Hawkwoman's main thrust essentially is not like her constantly feeling she's not good enough or as good as Carter was.
Right.
Who got fridged?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't get the not good enough. I thought I took from her like I want to be out. Like I'm not.
She's constantly. I'm looking at it now. She's constantly pretty much like her internal dialogue, or sorry, her outward dialogue about her thoughts is about she can't use her goggles as well as him, and she misses him every day. And how dare they not understand? They never talk about him. Like it's fresh, but it's not that fresh.
There is the goggles thing, but I just thought she was sad about like I don't, like I'm not doing this anymore.
She is, but like it's been years, and her main thrust for the writer is really just to still be mourning it or still not consider herself elite, right, or good enough.
The thing I noticed about the females is that they're all wearing very revealing 70s outfits. 60s and 70s outfits. A lot of the costumes are very male gazy. And, having a male gaze, I wasn't mad at it, but it was something I noticed. I was like, oh, this is not usually how women are treated these days in comic books. Thank goodness for it. But I think there's a lot more done with female characters in the sequel. I just finished reading the sequel today, this morning, like 5 minutes before we started. We'll get to that in a minute. There was a couple of things about this book that I actually enjoyed. Not actually, I don't know why I said actually, that I really enjoyed. There's sequences where we get a couple of red herrings that I liked. Like this Starro. Why can't I don't know how cameras work. Starro, there he is, right? Not Starro. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah. What about
I was like, oh, clearly that's Starro. Oh, wait, that's Crypto? Shit, that's weird.
The Brainiac thing on the Bizarro heads, but I couldn't remember if those circles, if that was just a coincidence, because I'm not sure that those circles had yet started to be representative of Brainiac. That is cool.
Yeah, so again, I hadn't read this until, and honestly, I thought I read this. Like, people have told me, like, The Nail, and you should read The Nail, and Elseworlds The Nail. Hey, did you like this? You should try The Nail. It's like, all right, cool, yeah, okay, I'll read it. And I thought I did. I knew that it was like, oh, what if Martha and Jonathan never found the baby? But I honestly didn't know anything past that. And all the stuff with Jimmy Olsen was a straight up shock to me. Like that was a totally surprise. Yeah.
Yeah. I was
all of it just and it made sense. It was weird. And then on top of it, I was just giddy because it was the old school Kryptonian uniforms with the weird bones.
The John
I'm
Byrne,
like, this is
right?
awesome. Yeah, the weird bone things up their arms and shit. Awesome designs. I was just the whole last act of this book. I was just like, fucking bring it. Yes. From Crypto on, from creepy mutant Crypto on, I was down.
I have a question. Because in my head, when John Byrne was drawing all those Kryptonian designs, I thought, because they got him down the sleeves, I thought they were like ruffles of fabric. Is that supposed to be bone?
It looks like bone to me, like almost just maybe not as dense as bone, but just like accoutrement that goes down to the fingers. Like it wasn't cloth. It's definitely hard.
Yes, okay. I had still a third impression of their makeup, which was like they're like little spongy kind of things that go down the side. And I don't know, just like
Mr. Byrne, if you're listening, could you tell us the tactile consistency of your costume designs? Thank you.
Please,
just write in. Just sign in. Just write in. Cool.
I think there was only one thing. If I'm remembering correctly, there was one scene that it struck me the wrong way. And it's one of those tricks that a comic book creator will use that you cannot do in any other medium unless it's a novel, right? You can only do it in the written word. And that is the sequence where Batman he's slumped over in his chair and he's all sad, boo-hoo, because his sidekicks are dead. And then Robin appears. Robin is in the shadows and he says, "You swore on your parents' grave to fight for justice. What about justice for your partners?" Oh my God, it's Robin. Am I seeing Robin? No, I'm seeing Selena Kyle dressed up as Robin, which is kind of hot. But it doesn't work in real life because that would clearly be Selena Kyle's voice. But because it's in a comic book, the reader goes, "Oh, is it a ghost? Is it Robin? What's happening?" Right. You know what I mean? It's just one of those silly little storytelling faux pas that stuck out to me.
Yeah. Anyone else in the costume?
Color hair. Was that?
Oh yeah. Just that whole thing of anyone else in the costume. It would never work in like any other medium.
Right. You'd be like, oh no, it's a completely different size and build.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Is that a 14-year-old boy? Why no? It's Selena Kyle.
Looks just like Robin. If they're in shadow, you can't see. Your ears going. Like everything is awful, and it's like, oh, that's Robin, totally Robin. I was by the end of this though, I was kind of cheering. I was cheering at the turn of a effed up Green Lantern, pretty much giving his power to Batman as he just continues to wail on Jimmy Olsen. I was like, this is cool. I don't think I've ever seen that because honestly, I mean, I did think like, why doesn't Green Lantern just protect himself and then power on it? But he shoots the ring over to Batman, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
He also phases through stuff, which was like a Silver Age thing that he could do. And I bring that up because the only time Guy Gardner had been like augmenting his own body for years in one Green Lantern story. And it's the only time other than this that I can remember that happening. But it's just
he phases through the wall.
Powers. Yeah.
How come when Jimmy Olsen sets Amish Clark on fire. Sorry, Carl, whatever, on fire. It burns his beard off, but not his hair.
Yo, I was thinking
it does burn his hair. Look, he's got the long hair and a beard, and then the next time, he's got a mullet.
Sorry, it wisps his hair back. I'm sorry.
Because like he just stepped out of the salon.
That straw hat protected, like that flammable straw hat protected the whole top of his hair.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Super Jimmy was all about Kryptonian, kind of life at that time. I assumed that he did that on purpose to make his best.
I love Alan Davis's depiction of fucked up Batman, like beating the hell up Batman. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Do you mean like? Where'd he go? There he is. Oh, God damn it. That one?
Yeah, that's the one he just showed.
Yeah.
Oh, did you show it? I didn't see it. Sorry.
Yeah, like super fat lip Batman.
Yeah,
and lumped up eye Batman.
Yeah. And it doesn't disappear for the rest of the story. Like other artists would just like, he's in the background, it's fine. But no, he's just always looks like half of his face is falling down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So think about Batman's like, travails. And then that was rough. Speaking of darkness, yeah.
That is what stuck with me ever since reading it the first time, which was the brutality with which Robin and Batgirl are dispatched. Now, it's all off panel, but boy, it felt so brutal and harsh to me. It really stayed with me. I felt that loss reading it the first time. Like it emotionally affected me, and it made perfect sense how destroyed Batman would be after such a thing. Which is not always the Batman we get, right? Even when when Jason Todd died, like he was mad, but he wasn't this, you know what I mean? Yeah. That was one of the things that, even though I read it decades ago, every time I think of The Nail, I think of that scene with the silhouette of Batman holding the dead Joker, having murdered him. I love that scene. And of course, as a kid growing up, I went, finally murder the Joker. Right. It makes perfect sense.
The only thing about that I'll say is that the scene before you see him holding the dead Joker, where you see them fighting, I don't think you really get a sense of him killing the Joker, because for the majority of that page, Batman's getting hemmed up. And it's only in shadow that you see there's the crack, but you never really see Batman's like hands on Joker or anything like that. Even in that shadow, it just cuts to the next scene and Joker's dead. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, how I did think how Barry took out Amazo was the most brutal thing in this entire book.
Yeah.
Phased his brain out of his head.
Yeah. Great use of like the intricacies of super speed. I love how, and he goes on a little bit about just a little bit.
I like that because that was the more to me like the about time thing. So I'm so tired of people just tripping Barry Allen or putting ice under his feet. This is Barry Allen. He's a scientist. He is smart. Use your brain. Amazo, as dope as Amazo is, he should be able to take him out. So I like that.
Yeah.
Also, the thing about the ice always bothered me because every artist draws his boots like that.
Yeah.
Right. Got treads.
He's got treads on him.
I mean, if you've ever worked,
he's wearing Spider-Man socks.
If you've ever worked in an industrial kitchen, it doesn't matter what anti-slip is on your shoes. Like you're going down.
That's different. Yeah.
I mean, it's anything.
So what did you going back to Jimmy Olsen, what did you guys think of the culmination of this whole big plot? You think it worked out?
I thought it was cool. I mentioned a second ago, and I'm not sure it was even appropriate, on Bizarro's head, when you see it, there's the 3 Brainiac circles. So I was like, oh shit, it's Brainiac. Yeah. I was like, oh, it's Brainiac, and because Superman wasn't around to stop him, he's got the alien technology and all that. I was like, oh, that would be really cool. But I don't know if they had started using those circles yet to depict Brainiac, because that's not original. So, and it could just be a design. I don't know. And
No. I can we recap? Can you guys recap his plot for me? Because I think I understand it.
I'm
not sure. Yeah. So he had been used, like Lex Luthor used him to graft that on there graft the alien DNA onto him because he had been muddled with before, right? So he had the propensity of being able to handle metahuman abilities.
Yeah.
And it worked for the most part. So then Jimmy took over and then started stealing, absconding with metahumans in order to test them to make sure that he's able to.
Because Jimmy Olsen has now been melded with, was it like the Eradicator program?
I think
which is supposed to preserve Kryptonian, the Kryptonian way of life. So Jimmy has been absconding with the different superheroes to see who else besides him is able to meld with the cloning process to create more Kryptonians, thinking, he mistakenly thought that he was impenetrable. Which we find out he isn't.
Yeah, and he's named the program is named the Eradicator because it wants to eradicate the possibility of Kryptonian.
It wants to eradicate if Kryptonians were to go away, it wants to eradicate that idea.
So it wants to save you by destroying everything else.
I will eradicate everything that is not Kryptonian.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Okay.
I think why they called it that originally, because it really doesn't make sense. But I think when it was originally introduced, it was the reason that they came up with that Kryptonians didn't just all leave Krypton. Because as spacefaring, we get closer to it. It's like, why wouldn't Kryptonians be able to just leave? That it killed Kryptonians that tried to go off of Krypton, and so then it was called the Eradicator, and then it developed because it loved Krypton. I mean, it doesn't straight up does not make sense as his name, but I think that's how it arrived. I think that's how it came to be.
That sounds like the retconned version of we need to make this fucking name and this disparate story make sense. So let's create a middle part somewhere down the line.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Avengers in the Avengers movie, where it's if we can't save the world, we'll damn sure avenge it. I'm like, oh, finally, the Avengers make sense as a name for people who save people.
But him, I guess the Eradicator was around, right? So it was because they don't mention that in this comic, right? It's just
it's more implied.
DNA overwrote him, and so now he's not the Jimmy Olsen we knew.
Yeah, but it's implied, like Noel said, the Eradicator was around. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I guess, and he had already taken over the Eradicator form and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But to your point about the whole Brainiac circles, I think that may have been established by now in 1998, because if I remember, and I could be wrong, but I think that really didn't become a thing until the Superman animated series. I think they adapted from there, and that would have preceded this.
Yeah. Tied it to Krypton's or destruction and all that stuff.
Right.
Ah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
I didn't realize that came from the animated series. That's cool.
Yeah. That's the first time I really took note of it, and then I think over years it got adapted into the book.
Because he had
I have a question to you, Silver Age guys.
What's happening? Shade the Changing Man?
That's Shade the Changing Man.
Yes.
Whom I never read anything of, but always seemed like this weird, awesome.
Yeah. Also known as Nightmare Fuel.
I think he was Ditko.
Yeah, right?
Ditko did some art on him.
Ditko, maybe Steve Gerber might have done a notable run. There was a recent somebody, the Changing Woman, Shade maybe.
No.
It was just the Young Animals, I think. Sorry, what were we saying? No.
Oh, it's absolute nightmare fuel. It's like, hey, this force field that's going to help you is going to look like a constantly morphing, crazy version of a thing that you will run from. It's wild. Randy chimed in about the history of Eradicator. I don't know if you guys want to learn.
Yeah, of course. On Krypton, the Eradicator does all that it could over the years to protect Kryptonians, even from themselves. When a group of Kryptonian explorers leave Krypton in search of a new planet to colonize, the Eradicator alters their birthing matrices and makes them fatally allergic to lead, thus creating Dax.
Yeah.
Needed. Further ensure that nobody left Krypton, the Eradicators alters Kryptonians by encoding in them a genetic defect so that they will instantly perish if they leave the ... planet, I assume.
Probably.
The comment got cut off.
I can cite that. Right before the New 52, there was a really cool Legion story. It was when Mon-El took over as Superman for a little while, and there was a
James Robinson.
Yeah, it was just around that time, and they did a one-shot that told of the history of various Legion worlds, I think, and Daxam. Yes. Or it was there was that, but I'm thinking of a separate thing. It was a history of Daxam, and it was a great single issue if anybody likes that kind of thing.
I found the rest of the comment. That if they leave their world, one of the surviving aliens, known as the Cleric, takes the Eradicator and leaves Krypton with a group of followers. Unfortunately, they die soon thereafter, as the Kryptonian genetic link to their home planet precludes their survival off-world. Thanks, Randy.
Yeah.
So it is a long story to make a name make sense, because it was named before it was discovered, right? All right.
No. Well, it was just this like Kryptonian matrix that he found when he's self-exiled, and then he brought it back. I'm not sure that they called it the Eradicator. It's the thing that turned him Kryptonian, and when he would fly standing up wearing the white thing on the sleeves outfit. This was the thing that did that to him. And then it was just around for a while, like years and years before it was used in the Death and Rebirth of Superman stuff. So I don't know when the name started.
Yeah, I first came upon him when they did the Death and Rebirth of Superman.
Yeah.
So would you guys recommend JLA The Nail, Volume 1?
Definitely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I thought it holds up. I think it's beautiful. The art is great. The colors. Oh, I'm super into it.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it transcends nostalgia. Like, there's a lot of things that you guys have asked me to read recently that has been very rooted in nostalgia. And if I wasn't there, I won't enjoy it. This transcends that. Like, this is a really fun story.
Yeah, I was wondering how it was going to hold up for me when I went to go back to revisit it. Last week we talked about DC versus Marvel, and I just hated it so much. And I was very happy that I could like this as much as I did. Now, that takes us to another nail, also by Alan Davis and Mark Farmer. This was a slog for me to get through. I think once I wanted, like, after the nail, I wanted more of it. I liked that world so much, and I like Alan Davis's work on it so much that I was really excited for another story. And honestly, I don't remember anything about this. So rereading it today was almost the first time for me. And as it's just as beautiful as the nail, the colors are great, the inks are great, the faces are great. Everything about the art is just as good as it was the first time around. The story, however, while having a lot of really cool follow-ups from the original one, overall, I was forcing myself to continue reading it. The little nuggets of coolness were almost not enough. And I think that the wrap up of everything not only does the motivations of one of the characters not make sense to me, but it was jumping around so much that I lost track of Ollie and Black Canary. And was that supposed to be in the past? Because he's in a hospital bed. Is this directly after his what would you call it? Being fucked up by a Mazo? You know what I mean? Like the threads got confusing after a while for me.
Yeah, he was fucked up by a Mazo. Then a lot of time passed, and then the first nail, and then this. They mention a couple times that this is a year after the events of that one. Like, Superman has been on the scene for a year and making himself crazy.
But this sequence reads like this is after his getting his arm ripped off from Amazo.
I think he was so beaten up that he's just like he's on his last legs.
I read this last night. It was difficult, and I knew it was going to be difficult because of the first sequence. The whole opening of this book is the recap of a story we did not get, and then as soon as it's revealed that the main characters, the JLA, are watching like a video recap of what we just saw, I was like, oh, fuck you. Like, that's the worst story device of, like, last time on JLA The Nail. Like, it was just so upsetting. But the stuff that was happening, I actually really thought was cool. I wanted to see the Green Lantern Corps against the new guy, or like intervening in the New Gods Apocalypse War. And I straight up loved Barda and Scott Free and what they do with them. That is literally the best thing that came out of this whole goddamn story. They're very quickly becoming my favorite couple in all of comics. But then every time that something new or cool is done with them, even though this is not new, it's cool though. New to me. Yeah. I loved every second of it. So every time that they went away from her, I was like, all right, whatever. And then when it finally is revealed as to what's causing all of these unexplainable issues, I had another moment of, oh, fuck you. It was like a made up weird thing that didn't tie everything else together. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, there's so many different threads and so many. And
it's not just me, right? He
okay, here we go.
There
you go.
He stroked out. I just know what was happening.
Space Amoeba. I don't know if that came through. It was all about Space Amoeba.
Yeah, a limbo cell. Yeah. A giant cell of limbo. But it didn't really connect all the dots of gates of hell being open, of like it was just like, hey, this big thing is gonna do all that stuff. Sure, we're gonna
other thing that happened. I wasn't sure, like, oh, this is just also occurring. Like Batman was so disconnected from everything else, and that tied into his story. But yeah, I don't know that they even had anything to do with the ultimate threat. Then it might have just been like, oh, we were trying to bring Rex back, and then these other things got through.
So JD had told me earlier this week that maybe there was supposed to be a third one, right?
Yeah,
he said he wanted
final nail.
Okay, so I think that they weren't related, and only in so much as the plot, the way that he constructed the plot of the first one is he very briefly introduced the New Gods War with Oa and didn't fucking touch it at all.
That was cool. I love how they were like, hey, Hal, we dealt with this whole thing. I'll tell you about it.
Yeah, this one kind of deals with that ish, and then kind of does a riff on Crisis on Infinite Worlds or Crisis on Infinite Earths with this piece of limbo that's connecting them all. Yeah. But it introduces this weird magic crap of opening gates of hell and things are happening. So I suppose that the third one was going to be all magic based. So this was like the Crisis one. That one's the magic one.
Yeah, yeah.
But here it just feels like, okay. All right.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas also in the original Nail, the Green Lantern New God stuff is like, oh, there's this crazy thing happening over there, but you don't really need to know about it. It's a bit unusual that they would bring it up, but kind of interesting in that fact. Whereas this aspect of it was not present in this one.
Yeah.
I think also
I just look at it as, the Space Amoeba was affecting not only space and time, but, dimensions.
That makes sense. Could have been both. Could have been both of them. And also building. I think Elseworlds is so interesting when you see the one major change and then all of the little changes that come because of that change. And the original one did that very well. I found myself, so I did enjoy reading this, but I found myself reading it just like, oh, it's just a slightly different way for the JLA to have played out. We're just in a different DC kind of continuity, and I'm enjoying that, but it doesn't feel as much, it's not as Elseworldsy now that we've been exposed to it already, and we're just kind of seeing another way. That being said, I liked seeing how some of the threads played out and all that. The scot-free in the ring is one of the parts that I've remembered, all along. And I was like, oh, that was in this comic. Sweet.
Yeah,
so that was cool. Also, Clark getting his costume, or not costume, sorry, disguise. Carl getting his disguise is one that always, I love the kind of theater explanations. Like, no, don't go for the whole big wig. It's too, be a little more subtle. Just the glasses. Yeah. A little, under the radar. That's
more.
how you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another one that,
that's the only time that sort of thing has worked for me. Because in past versions of this, it was like, look, I'm going to put on glasses. They're never going to recognize me. And the fact that they started with this whole Shaggy Man, like, hobo outfit, basically. They were like, just relax. That's too much here. Just do this and do this. And it was like, oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense in the real world.
Did they ever wrap up so maybe I overread it or misread it. Did they ever wrap up the plot point of between Wonder Woman and Aquaman? Like, they found that android body at the bottom of the ocean. Then we're thrown through time. And then you saw that Desaad actually designed that thing, but it was never really brought back up. What the hell was that?
That was the thing. So that was a piece of the weapon that ultimately Oliver shot into.
That costume, that android was a piece of the web. Like it's actually
that dude that could evolve things. He's, I think, a pre-existing character of the New Gods.
it's a straight up android.
Oh, that android. That is a good question because I thought that was a Mazo when I first saw it.
No, they find it at the bottom of the ocean, being protected by some other apocalyptic person. There's a lot of, and then that thing threw them through time. There's a lot of stuff in it. It's 30 pounds of story in a 5-pound bag.
I wonder if that's another example of what you're thinking, that he was laying the groundwork for something else, because it totally looked like a proto Amazo or something. Yeah. Oh, you know what? They did actually say that Amazo's abilities were based on that space limbo thing, the cell that could absorb energy.
Mm-hmm.
That, and I think that place that Wonder Woman and Aquaman found had something to do with that space limbo thing. Maybe it was like an early test and supposed to be you connect the dots, but it didn't really. No, the dots weren't clearly linked enough.
I did not connect those dots.
Yeah, I don't know.
Also, too, like, I loved the reveal of the crime syndicate, but it was wasted. Yeah. It was literally just to tell you, like, the vibrational frequencies are bleeding a little bit. They didn't really do anything with it at all, which I was.
The whole multiverse is
Harry and Adam are gone, man. Just kind of racing through other worlds, and you're like, oh, cool,
and,
the Marvel universe, you know.
And they get out of it because the window broke. Like, what happened? Was it a time storm or something? Like that? That whole thing was just like, whatever. Just get me to the big reveal at this point, because I there's just too much thing. There's too many things happening to make me care about all of them individually. You know?
Yeah.
Did you guys know what world that was when Barry and Ray are racing through the different worlds? They come across Captain Marvel's Earth, and then there's like one in the center with like a guy with a green outfit that kind of looks like Magnus Robot Fighter, but in green instead, and he is fighting robots.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I
Here he is.
Yeah. Do you guys know what that is?
Oh,
nope.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait, no. But bring up. Your picture's not clear. I can't really see it. What? Let me see. Oh.
I don't know.
No, I don't know.
I vaguely recognize the ones to the screen left on that. They're like a parody kind of thing, but
yeah,
I don't remember. Yeah,
they're probably a parody of somebody. I wonder if they're a parody of the Valiant universe at the time.
The one in the center.
Yeah.
It could, or like, who knows what rights were where.
Was it called? Wasn't there a gold key or something?
There was a gold key. Yeah, was that Magnus and Dr. Solar and all them?
No, that was
no idea.
I think they were Valiant. They weren't, because Gold Key was mostly like,
or just Solar.
kid comic books mostly.
Huh.
So Len,
Yes.
what did you think of Another Nail?
I think it was one nail too many.
Yeah.
I thought it was actually like Alan Davis trying to get his crisis on George Perez on and draw every single person in the DC universe, and just trying to have fun murdering a whole bunch more. I thought that it was, again, you can't knock his art, so it looks beautiful, and some of the ideas are not bad and they're interesting, but it's so stuffed that he can't really I actually think that might be a take on the Valiant universe at that time.
I thought you were talking about the dudes up top fighting the robots, but both of them were completely unrecognizable to me, so I was like, whatever, just keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry, Randy had asked that I show it full screen. So go ahead, Len.
Yeah, I just think ultimately that it's just a little bit too much going on in the book. It's beautiful art, but the story is just so stuffed that nothing ever really hits home. Yeah. So therefore, the only things that hits home are the art and the great splash pages that he puts in there. Returning to that trick that he did before. But it's cool, but it's nothing. And I said that's why I don't think it's as memorable as the first one.
Yeah, it's a shame it really lost steam for me because I really love that first one. And the second one, I was like, oh, I'm going to read it. I'm going to remember it this time because I clearly forgot it.
Yeah.
And nope, I'm probably going to forget this one too.
If
I'll be like, what, Space Amoeba? What are you talking about?
Yeah, if it was like 40% smaller, just a little bit more focused and smaller, I would have totally enjoyed like exploring more of this like world without Superman or world now with Superman and how that's adjusting. But it was just too much too fast. And because of that, everything felt short shrifted.
Yeah.
But
there's
I would still check out a Final Nail though. You know what I mean? Like,
I still would have liked to have read it. Yes.
Yeah, like now knowing that there was a third kind of, stories often come in threes. It's a cool kind of thing, and who knows if there was a third one, maybe you'd be like, oh yeah, but then it pays off in Final Nail. Like all that stuff.
Yeah.
You were talking about women also.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Brian. I was cutting you off. Go ahead.
I noticed Lois. So single heroes get splash pages, and Lois gets a splash page as well as
nice.
And I like her splash page. It's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and we were talking about the females, the women.
Mm-hmm.
Women have a lot more to do in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think they're treated a little bit better. There's a whole team of them, in fact.
Going to that page where we're talking about trying to identify the people, I do think that that's supposed to be Magnus, who is like I think his full name in a Valiant universe is like Magnus, like the robot fighter or something like that. And I think that's the reason why he's fighting the robots. The team over to the left of him, that's the Inferior 5.
Okay.
They
Which
were
Alan
like
Davis might have worked on, right?
No, Alan Davis didn't work on them. The Inferior 5 is like mostly from the 50s, and then when they were used again in the Silver Age, it was Keith Geffen kind of riffed on them a little bit. And then the last one, I think, if I'm almost certain that's supposed to be a riff on Captain Marvel.
No, that's Captain Atom. The last one is the Charlton.
So that's a Charlton Captain Atom, right? Okay. Who was basically a knockoff of the Captain Marvel at that time. All right, cool.
But no, Captain Atom's he's totally different. He's not.
I know he's not, but he always in that iteration of him reminded me of the Captain Marvel that Marvel was doing at that time.
Oh, that Captain Marvel.
Right.
I got you.
So I had two things that stuck out to me as things that I did not like in this book.
Mm-hmm.
One is, and it was bad enough in the first Nail. What was it? Batwoman's new costume.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And her new costume again.
Her newer costume.
I hate it so much.
What don't you like about it? Like, what is
the color scheme?
Yeah, because it's her Catwoman, purple and green, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. I like the costume design, but if that was blue, I think it would be a pretty sweet costume.
Well, the eyes don't make any sense either.
No. And the other thing that really bothered me was in the first Nail, it's a big deal that Oliver Queen is crazy. He's nuts. He hates all the superheroes. He's angry. He's jealous. He's trying to help bring them down. And then this time, he saves everybody, and he's back to normal, and he's in the Amazo body, and he saves the world, and he's acting completely normal. But it seems like there was no reason for it. What'd you guys think of that?
I like to see. I mean, I love people coming around, right? So I guess we didn't really see it happen, but no. I was willing to believe that Ollie was like, oh, I screwed up. But no, we don't see it. And the Phantom Stranger, even at the end, is like, oh no, I wasn't trying to save reality. I wanted to give this tortured soul a chance at redemption. Which was Oliver. I could take it or leave it. I thought it was cool that he got to, when he said somebody's going to die, I was like, oh, good. It was, he gets to redeem himself and he's, it
felt like it started at one place and then it was immediately at another place and there was no transition.
I was gonna say, like, on paper it looks great or it sounds great, but it didn't happen in the course of this story. That literally everything else happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are my two like big takeaways from the second.
I didn't like the whole bit with Batman because to me, like all of a sudden now Batman's fighting the Joker again, but he's a demon
Yeah.
and they're going to hell. It's almost like dude, there are other stories to do with Batman.
Yeah.
And Alan Davis worked on Batman long enough, even though he was more of the artist at that time. But he worked on Batman long enough that he knows there's other ways to go with this story. You told your ultimate story. He killed Joker. Now move on. Let's do something else. You know what I mean? I didn't like that.
I think he wanted.
I liked it because it sort of showed us that not only were time and space being affected, but also the hell dimensions, and we're releasing demons into the world and stuff like that. So I kind of thought it was cool. That was probably my favorite part of this book, besides Superman and how self-conscious he is when he has to accept an award. I thought that was great.
My favorite. Oh, so I liked the Joker fight only because it was just a way of bringing the character back around to closer to before the deaths of Robin, and it was just a narrative choice. It's fine. I mean, it was a little whatever, but it's fine. No, my favorite part of the entire book is that the strength of Ollie's beard supersedes Amazo.
Yeah, I like that. I did like that.
Well, no, because he can shapeshift. He's
yeah. I mean, the way I read it is the strength of his beard supersedes Amazo. Yeah, like, hey, you should all know that I'm good now. Beard. Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure I would recommend another Nail.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Well, they come collected together now with no indication where one starts and one ends. So you're with it.
It was real tough. You know, I got through it and I'm like, I think I'm reading another Nail now.
I actually
to tell.
There were no chapter breaks and there was no different, like there was no, I could tell where the first one ended because it was a big old splash page and a see you guys tomorrow. However, there was absolutely no indication in the book. And I was just like, this sucks. I want to know.
The beginning of Another Nail kind of starts out like it might not be the first page of something. You know what I mean? Like it could be an epilogue to something else.
I had to do some flipping around because I was like, wait a minute. Because I was reading the digital version and I was like, is this fucked up? So I went back to my hard copies. I was like, oh no, that's the first panel of the second Nail.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's not. It feels like it's out of sequence.
Yeah.
So,
how was this released? Was this released in issues or
Prestige?
Just?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were both of them were 3 issues each.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like all my collected editions. I would like to know chapter breaks. I like across the board. I hate when they take the seams away. Like all books have chapter breaks. Just let it go.
Definitely for another story.
Yeah.
For
Batman's Grave, if they do a collected edition of Batman's Grave, I'm not going to need you to differentiate. It's written specifically.
That's a real specific example of take away the chapter breaks. But for almost all things, like they write them as specific chapters to a larger story. Like, why would they? Taking it out just seems like a weird executive decision. That's just like, no, it's fine. Just take them out. It's an extra 5 pages. Let's get rid of it. I'm like,
I have not read Rat Queens.
Yeah, Melissa Gums asks, have you guys ever read Rat Queens? I have read Rat Queens. We did a book club on it at my comic shop.
Nope.
I wonder why you're asking though. Is it related somehow to this that I'm not seeing?
Just curious.
She's asking curious whether or not we've read it, and possibly if we all haven't, which doesn't sound like most of us have, it might not be a bad idea to maybe introduce it and read it for spoiler alert.
Interesting.
Melissa Gums, is that your official request for the next episode of Spoiler Alert for us to read Volume 1 of Rat Queens?
Because if you're asking just out of curiosity, then we will not read it.
That's right.
You know what?
Yes, I need
Everybody,
a specific request.
Let's be quiet and wait for her to respond.
Yeah, this will be great when I put it out as an audio podcast. Go ahead.
All right, this isn't happening. Did you?
Where's your patience?
You lose.
The hell, dude? Do you flinch every time?
It's a forward motion. Back to the beginning of The Nail. Did you guys notice one of the trophies they have is called a Jovian whatnot? WOTNOT.
No.
I don't remember that from. It's like in the second page, and it's this little red thing, the Jovian whatnot. I totally thought the thing that Superman got, that's what reminded me of it, in another nail, was some kind of trick or a trap.
Me too.
Yeah,
They're
it's
like,
made out of
we got it out of a meteorite.
Yeah, it's one strange thing. Let me put it in the trophy room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe the next one.
Oh.
Oh.
Exactly. Melly says, exactly. Thank you, Yitlan. So
Excellent.
this is her official request that we read Rat Queen. So we're next episode, next Sunday, join us at 11 o'clock where we will be discussing Rat Queens
Excellent.
at the behest of Melly G.
Sweet.
Any final words for a nail and another nail?
Did you notice what Batman had in his trophy case?
What do you got?
He had Batmite stuck in amber in the Batcave.
No,
It is dark.
He goes hard.
I did notice, speaking of that, I did notice in the JLA trophy case, they had the murdered corpse of Red Tornado.
I saw that torn apart. Yeah.
God damn, like that's awful. It's like what's that called when you stuff a bird?
It's
You put it on
taxidermy.
Taxidermy. Like that's dark shit. You guys are just hanging out with the robot corpse.
Well, maybe in that universe, Red Tornado never turned good. You know, he was.
That's right. He was a villain
Yeah.
first.
Still pretty dark.
Very.
Hey, being a hero has consequences.
That's true. I thought Ray Palmer
For
was,
everyone else.
when he was breaking into the Mad Thinkers lounge, I was like, oh, Ray is done. Like, this is so focused on him. And when he got zapped, I was like, oh, man, I liked him. And he was still alive.
Yeah. He's all right. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. If you wanted to let us know what you thought of JLA The Nail and Another Nail, you can email us at cultpopgo@gmail.com. You can tweet at me at JD's Hero Complex. You can help the show out by going to patreon.com/JohnnyDestructo, or you could go to jdsherocomplex.shop. I am constantly uploading new trade paperbacks and stuff that you can buy from my store, and I will mail it to you, including gift cards. Len, where can people find you?
Hey, you can hit me up at every place that you find the Black Tribbles podcast and YouTube show, blacktribbles.com. We're available as a podcast any place and every place that you find podcasts. And we also stream live on your video on YouTube and Facebook in our Tribble Nation Facebook group. And we'll be coming to your way an hour and a half at 2 p.m. with Gutter Talk, where we're talking about when we talk about what happens when old cartoons become new cartoons. Does it work? Tune in and check us out and see for yourselves.
No.
People can find me wherever injustice is served.
God damn it.
And I will
That'll be on the Black Tribbles YouTube channel.
I will find you. No,
Don't look for me. I'll find you.
I got you. I'll find you. It's fine. Yeah, you can just find me on Twitter at Mr. Bartocci, MRBARTOCCI, or any of the social medias on the Cult Pop Podcast Network, and I will say hello.
Brian.
Hey, JD. I'm at BrianDesign.com.
Now kiss. JD was gonna eat his whole head.
My whole head. I use it all the time.
That's it. We're done.
That's it.
See you guys. We did great.
Da, da, da.